Hi, I'm Lisa from Lori's Country Cottage. Welcome to How Tuesday. Today we're going to learn how to make the Stow Go Tote bag from the Quilt Company. Join me. Let's gather our supplies for the Stow Go Tote by Karen Montgomery of the Quilt Company. You'll need your main fabric piece. It's best not to choose a directional fabric for this fabric. You'll need a contrast for the top trim and some fabric for handles. You'll also need coordinating thread and a hair elastic. Let's make the bag. Place your main fabric piece right side up. Take one of your trim pieces and place it right side down. They are now right sides together. Stitch that seam with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, turn it over so that your trim piece is on the bottom. Roll up your main fabric and then pull your trim piece up to match the seam from the first step. Once it's matched, you can pin it and then take it to your sewing machine. Sew it with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, turn your roll right side out. Pull the tube from the inside to the outside. This is often called the hot dog process. Continue pulling until your bag is right side out. Now press your trim piece with the seam allowance going up toward the trim. Press on both sides. Now take the opposite side of your main piece and find the center. Mark it with a pin or an erasable marker. Take your hair elastic and pinch it. Pin it to your mark with the bulk of the hair elastic facing in. Take it to your sewing machine and stitch over it several times inside your 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now it's time to sew the other side of our bag. Take your trim piece and line it up with the edge. Stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, just like in the first step. Flip it over so that your trim piece is on the bottom. And roll up your main fabric piece. Again, bring up that trim piece to match your former stitching line and stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I did some back stitching over top of my elastic on this side. Use the hot dog method to pull the tube out of your stitching and, again, press that seam allowance up toward your trim. Now it's time to make handles. Take your handles and fold them along the length of the handle, wrong sides together. Create a nice crease. Now take the raw edges and fold them toward the crease after opening up the handle. Once they're both folded to the middle, you can give it a good press. Now take that handle and fold it in half with the folded edges meeting. Give both your handles a really good press. Take the handles to your sewing machine and do an edge stitch. I use about an 1/8 inch seam allowance. It's time to attach our handles. Using the instructions on the pattern, make your placement lines. Lay your handles with the bulk of the handle against the body of your bag. Pin them in place. Make sure your handle isn't twisted. Stitch the handles with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I did some back stitching here. Flip the handles up and stitch with about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Again, back stitching is a great idea. Now that your handles are on, it's time to complete the bag. Trust me here. Follow the instructions. Place your bag wrong sides together. Make sure you match your top edge and the seam line where your trim meets the body of your bag. Stitch those side seams with a slightly smaller than 1/4 inch seam allowance. When I'm making French seams, and that's what we're doing, I like to take a second to cut off my little threads. It saves me having to clean them up when my bag is done. Turn your bag wrong side out and give it a good press. Take some time to make sure those side seams are nice and flat. Now, with your bag right sides together, stitch with a slightly larger than 1/4 inch seam allowance. This will trap the raw edges from the previous step inside. You're making a French seam. There we have it, your Stow and Go Tote. Let's look at how to fold it. Lay your bag with the elastic facing down. Fold in your two sides along the handle lines. Fold it down at the seam where your trim matches the main body of your bag. Roll it up, starting at the bottom of your bag. Once it's rolled up, slip the elastic over, and you have your very own Stow and Go Tote.